So in this video, we're going to be looking at how to generate testing data real quick from the editor. So to do this, I'm simply going to go back in the track model here. And what I'm going to do here is then I'm going to start adding some information to generate this data. You would usually not put the information that generates the data in the model itself. You would put that into an editor class, because the editor class will be responsible to generate the data, and so the data should not contain the parameters that you use to generate the data, unless you want to be able to regenerate the data and you want to serialize it very quickly. And so to make it very easy, I'm just going to put that into the track model itself, and I'm also going to put the data generation methods in the track model itself, so that we could eventually use those methods at runtime and be able to generate some random fake data at runtime. But you would usually otherwise keep this out of the track data model to put this into edit classes that used to generate the model. So what I'm going to say here is that I'm going to first reference a static public integer, which I'm going to call inputs, and that I'm going to make it default to 4, because I want this to be as generic as possible. And so for now, we've defined that we wanted to be able to use inputs to for left, up, and right, and down. So it makes 4 inputs, but we could possibly use different versions, like a stream down versions, a simpler version with only 2 or 3 inputs, or a more complicated, like an advanced user, an advanced player, like a pro player sort of inputs, and then we would have to handle more than just 4 inputs. So I need to reference the number of inputs that I want to use to generate the data, so that it goes from 0 to 3, or it could possibly go from 0 to 7 if I wanted to have like 8 different inputs. And there I'm simply going to copy paste this, because this is just going to take too long to type, but let me just explain what I've got here. So this is going to be the pre-roll. The pre-roll is how many empty beats do we want to have at the beginning of the track, because we don't want the track to begin with gameplay instantly. We want to let the player take the time to see the notes come in. So this is going to be the number of empty beats not to be played at the beginning of the track. And then we're going to add notes. We're going to add beats by blocks. And so this is how many minimum beats do we want to have in a block, and this is how many maximum number of beats we want to have per block. And there, this is the minimum number of empty beats we want to have between blocks, and this is the maximum number of empty beats between blocks. And at the very end, we just have the number of blocks that we want to generate. So the idea here is that we're just going to make a big loop, and we're going to start adding beats based on random random numbers to do this. So to do this, again, I could put the randomize method. I could put it into an editor class, so that it's only available within the Unity editor and no longer available at runtime, and still keep the parameters in the class itself. But I'm just going to put this in the track for now, and so it's always handy to use this at runtime if we wanted to generate some random data. So there I'm going to declare a new public void, and I'm going to call it randomize, like this. And in randomize, the first thing I want to do is then say that beats equals new list of integers. The first thing I need to do is to reset this, otherwise I'm just going to keep adding to the list. And there, what I'm going to do here is then start by the pre-roll. So for the pre-roll, I'm going to make a for loop, and I'm going to say for integer b equals 0, and b being less than pre-roll, and then b incremented every loop, then what am I doing? Then I'm doing beats add, because it's a list, so it's very simple. And then I'm going to say beats add -1. So this is going to add the -1 data that I want to save for the empty beats, and then we'll see later how we can handle this. Now what I want to also do is then say for, and there I'll say for integer, and I'm going to call this blk, like block, equals 0, then block being less than the number of blocks, and again block being incremented every time. Then now I'm going to say that I want to define a new block length, like how many beats are we going to have in this block. And so there I'm going to define I'm going to call this block length, and block length is going to be random range. So I'm going to use the random range, and you can see that there one of the things that I've seen many times actually where people kind of struggle is to understand that there's two implementations of the range method. There's one for the floats and one for the integers, and the one for the integers tells us that the maximum is exclusive. So if you say random 0, 1, you will only get 0. You will never get 1. So if you want a value that is randomly 0 or 1, you have to say random range 0, 2, so that it will go from 0 to 1. And so there I'm going to use simply a minimum block and maximum block like this, and I'm going to say +1, so that we use the maximum value. Now I'm going to say that for integer b equals 0, and then b being less than block length, and then b ++, I'm going to start adding some beats. And so there I'm going to say integer b equals random range. I'm going to do the same thing, random range, and there this time I'm going to use 0, and I'm going to use the inputs here value that I've created here. So this is a static variable, so that it's shared amongst all the tracks, and we can just change it later if we want. And so there I've got this new random number generated, and so because this is 0 based, then I don't want to do +1, because otherwise I would end up with a value that would be out of the array. And there I will say beats add, and there also just pass the beat that I just created like this. And so now that I've got this, what I can also do is then I'm just going to do the same thing with the interval. And with the interval, I'm just going to call this interval length, like this, interval length. And there, this is going to use minimum interval and the maximum interval like this. And this is now going to use interval length for the maximum. And there it's just we're just going to this time say that we want to add -1 like we did for the pre-roll. And so what this is going to do here is then say that we're going to get into this loop here for every block that we want to create. So we're going to start creating one block, and then one interval, one block, one interval, one block, one interval. But we don't want to have an interval at the very end. We don't want to end with an interval. And so what we can do here is then say that if block, so we're going to say that if block equals the number of blocks minus 1, then we're just going to do a break so that we break out of this loop if we've reached the last block. And so that's it. We've got this random generating function that we can later use. And so for now, the only way that we can use it, if I get back in the editor just to make sure that everything is smooth, there I get to see all the parameters that I have, but that's it. The only way that I can generate this data is by using another script at runtime. And so this is why we're going to start working on a custom editor to add a custom button here, which allows us to click on this button and generate the random data. And this is what we're going to be doing in the next video.